Let's take a look at day 2 of COP28. I'm Julian Rogers, Climate Guardian updates just for you. Well, day 2 was also very busy, like day 1. But day 2 had some interesting news. One, a major injection of funds, and secondly, a very interesting discussion about climate finance. Who should help us better understand this than our own Raquel Moses from our UNFCCC. She's heading up our accelerator program.
Big challenge in our region is scale and access to funding. We can't afford to fund the transition wholly on our own. A lot of the carbon in the atmosphere did not produce wealth for us. And the storms that come wipe out our GDP, and we have to constantly rebuild. So we have to build not just physical resilience, but economic resilience. And those are the kinds of things that we work on.
Another Caribbean person was Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. She had something to say about the ability of the Commonwealth to respond to the crisis.
23% of the world's land area is in our Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth countries are stewards of more than 1/3 of the global ocean under national jurisdiction. And our member states are at the crosshairs of the climate crisis. Our Climate Finance Access Hub has helped unlock more than $322 million in vital finance for the most vulnerable countries who would otherwise struggle to access it. And we've got $500 million worth of projects in the pipeline.
Well, there was even bigger news yesterday, and this was about a major injection of funds.
Today, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan launched a $30 billion catalytic climate fund. Altera is the world's largest private investor that is 100% focused on solutions to climate change, with an emphasis on driving investments to the global south. This is a custom-tailored climate finance vehicle. There's nothing like it in the world today. This is an investment that will give access to clean energy for millions of people.
That was a major bit of news for Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley. Fresh off the plane from celebrating independence in Barbados, she was there just in time to join the debate about climate finance, and she gave them all a lesson.
And we're beginning to see progress. The question is whether it will be equal to what is needed. We believe, for example, that the capitalization of the Loss and Damage Fund is critical because it provides essential grant funds post-disaster, and that is absolutely necessary. But the scale of its capitalization will be a concern to all if it is not properly capitalized. And that's why we feel that a mechanism that allows both for capitalizing the loss and damage, but increasing what is available to you with the Resilience Sustainability Trust and what is available to development banks for resilience funding is equally critical. We've been talking about public money, which has to continue. We've been talking, however, also about mechanisms for non-state actors contributing. And whether it is through the international taxation that Emmanuel is speaking about, where we can spread the burden, not just to the oil and gas companies, which we've said, if you've made $4 trillion in profits last year, $200 billion will not hurt you. Treat 95% of your profits as 100% and give the other 5% to be shared between a loss and damage fund and financing resilience and adaptation through the mechanisms. Similarly, we're asking people, and I'm conscious of the time, so please, we're asking people to look at how do we share the burden. Each of us wants to save the planet. Now, if we have 4 billion people traveling last year, who is going to stop traveling because of a $5 or $10 charge per ticket? And that allows everybody to be able to share the burden, as William and Emmanuel are looking to do with the International Taxation Force. Similarly, you have $7 trillion in goods moving on ships last year. If you put 1% on that, that's another 70 billion. So when you take 200 from oil and gas and you take 70 billion from international shipping, not to be passed on to the consumer, by the way, and when you take equally another 40, 50 billion from international travelers, air travelers, and then you look at what is the most efficient financial transactions tax and dealing with insurance, so that we have a dedicated source of funding, not just for loss and damage, but for the global public goods that have to be financed in order to build resilience. Secondly, we need to be able to determine how best we're going to manage and regulate carbon markets. We're talking all over the place, and we haven't settled on how best this can work to avoid the greenwashing and to avoid implosion. Thirdly,
Raji is going to solve this.
I hope so.
Putting him on
And
the
he's
spot.
already started with what the climate resilient debt clauses, debt pause clauses, what we call climate clauses. Barbados is the largest issuer globally now of debt with climate clauses. It works. Immediately upon a disaster, we will be allowed to save over 2 years 20% of GDP. That makes sense, because I don't need to be paying debt when I should be providing shelter or providing food immediately after disaster. And we learned the hard way when Dominica had to pay money immediately upon that. And the last point I want to make is, where and how are we going to make decisions? Because that is what is holding us back. We get here, we talk. At the end of the day, how are we going to have a mechanism that can secure international taxation as efficiently as the world has imposed on us the global taxes and Pillar 2 with respect to the global minimum tax? How are we going to ensure that the voices of small countries who have a different reality, insurance works where insurable risk exists? And Emmanuel, I hope we can get that for other parts of the world. But my fear is, in the Caribbean, it's already being seen as an uninsurable risk. We see the retreat of insurance companies in Florida. We see the absolute retreat of them in California with wildfires. So that is why we went for debt clauses, because it gives us access to money to deal with people who are uninsured and underinsured immediately after disaster. So I hope we can continue the conversation. Obviously, 3 minutes or 4 minutes can't get into the details of it, but suffice it to say that we have enough ideas. The problem is, where is the decision making going to be made, and who is going to be at the table to make the decisions? Because it isn't only about state actors, it's also about non-state actors.
Barbados Prime Minister giving a lesson in climate finance as she appeared in a special forum on finance and philanthropy on day 2 of COP28. I'm Julian Rogers with the latest Climate Guardian report right here just for you. We'll continue to keep you up to date with the reports and, of course, the analysis as well. COP28, your time to act.